Punk Rock Elite, a podcast about HOFX. Oh, hello you. We're just two on glue.
Ah.
Yeah, a little teaser there. Eddie French and Red Redmond. I'm not on glue. Can't speak for you, Red.
Well, I think drugs are good.
Ah. And you count glue as one of them, do you?
Absolutely, yeah. Now I want to sniff some glue.
No, not glue. So we'll just say Ramon songs at each other as a conversation. It's like a dreadful improv game. Hello, everyone. Punk Rock Elite podcast, and we're back with a not an album deep dive, but a recorded music release dive.
Yeah, it almost feels like a bonus episode, this one.
It does, because the track listing would suggest an album. Like the length, the number of songs would suggest an album, but the time spent listening to them really doesn't, which I suppose is which is all right. But I think we're just trying to space out the big releases, because we're in the sort of the peak area now. We've done Punk and Drublick, we've done Heavy Petting Zoo. The next major release is So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes, which I think is probably going to be the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
But we thought, because Heavy Petting Zoo was kind of weird and doesn't really bridge Punk and Drublick and So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes, in the way that one might expect a sort of a linear progression, we thought we'd have a look at a couple of other ones. And
I think the albums or the EPs that we're going to discuss today, I think they give a little bit of context to Heavy Petting Zoo. I think I understand it a little more now.
Okay.
Good. But I think that I think also that NoFX's EPs are like oddly quite important in their discography. I mean, like there are plenty of these songs that they still play live, and there's plenty of these songs that find their way, or at least one or two songs that find their way into So Long.
Absolutely. And there's some of them which basically work as demos.
Yeah.
More than sort of anything else. They sound like they're demos, which is kind of cool. Because you'd think that if they were on there, but they, clearly thought, no, these fit really, really nicely on this album. So that's what they did. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
We are indeed, yeah.
How have you been?
Oh, I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, no, I'm all good. All good. Busy with work. Nothing of interest. Just, living a life as people do.
Oh, I wonder what that's like. No, I've been.
What about you?
Yeah, not bad. Been mainly doing the day job of building other people's furniture for them, and the night job of doing funny at people.
Yay!
So that's good. I can blend those two into something that resembles a life, provided I don't want to see anyone or do anything that isn't those two things. So that's it. I'm not going to complain about doing stuff I enjoy, but I think this one is. There's a surprising amount to talk about for what is such a small amount of time spent on this on this particular set of musics. So I think we're just going to jump straight over into the body of the episode. So we'll see you in half a second. And here we are, a double 7-inch, which we're not that kind of podcast usually, but a double 7-inch of HOFX and Fuck the Kids.
Yeah. I mean, and which one of these comes first? HOFX?
HOFX, which was released on June the 19th, 1995. Fuck the Kids was released just over a year later on the 26th of August, 1996. So, which is interesting because the HOFX EP, that's a 12-inch EP, I've got to say. 12-inch, and then Fuck the Kids is a 7-inch. So the song with the thing with 2 songs, that's 12-inch. The thing with 13?
Mm-hmm.
That's 7-inch. So that makes total sense. Basically, HOFX has got 2 songs from the Punk in Drublic era. I think they might have been B-sides, maybe, but
okay.
But yeah, so they were contenders to go on Punk in Drublic.
And I like both of these songs, but I am kind of glad that they didn't make their way onto Punk in Drublic. They feel a little bit different.
I would see We Ain't Shit on Punk in Drublic a lot more comfortably than Drugs Are Good. I still think they probably made the right call in general.
Yeah.
But Drugs Are Good feels more Heavy Petting Zoo, I've got to say.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I think there are a lot of tracks on today's episode that feel very Heavy Petting Zoo.
When I say feels very Heavy Petting Zoo, that is not just like a slang way of saying dog shit, because I don't think that. I know if you've heard our Heavy Petting Zoo review, it may sound like we're particularly down on the album. I think that sonically and sort of stylistically, it makes much more sense as a Heavy Petting Zoo song than it does a Punk in Drublic song, without any judgment on that, just a purely objective sound comparison. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, they sound more raw than Punk in Drublic. I still think that, particularly at this point in their career, Punk in Drublic sounds quite a lot different to everything else that they've released. Like, it sounds slightly more, it sounds better produced. And like this stuff is a little bit more rough around the edges.
It sounds more obviously produced.
Yes.
In that you can hear a greater degree of sort of effort, of separation, of clarity than even of White Trash, which has all of those things, but it's not as cleanly produced. Maybe it's not as slick. That's not the right word, really, but that kind of vibe. It doesn't have that the fat sound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically. And so HOFX, that was I think the record was it says here on Wikipedia, 8,300 copies were made, 1,000 were picture discs, and the other 7,300 were randomly coloured splatter. So there you go. So and that's the thing. I think Mike certainly has always been very, very keen on stuff that only some people can get, like little extra bonuses. Because I think even because both of these songs you can listen to on 45 or 46 songs that weren't good enough to go on our other records, which is a lot of EP and stuff like that. But I think that on a lot of the EPs, I think there was like one song left off each one, so there was still some scarcity value to the EPs. I think I read that somewhere, because people are going, "Oh, we bought these, and now everyone can get the songs." Like, yeah, not this extra one though. So I had heard all of the songs on Fuck the Kids and HOFX before, because I own that the rarities, B-sides, and 7-inch collection, but I don't know which ones were missing. So yeah, HOFX it's called that because they've got a picture of the band, a rare photograph of the band with Don Ho in Hawaii.
Yeah, were they performing out in Hawaii just on the same evening as him, or?
I'm guessing that they were they were probably out in Hawaii doing a show, and for whatever reason Don Ho was there, and they went, "Oh, this is good," and then one of them probably looked at the picture and went, "Oh, look, it's HOFX," and they went, "That'll do." My guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure it's something as silly as that. I think it's a really funny photo as well.
Yeah, I really do. I think it's very funny, and also that makes more sense than them going HOFX. Now, what would the cover of that look like?
Quickly to Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, I'm talking to American Airlines as we speak. You know, it seems unlikely, doesn't it? But I'd love it if that was the case. You know, the 90s was good to punkers. They could make a bit of money on in the 90s, so maybe they were just splashing the cash. Hey, if we do it for this, it's a tax write-off, right? But yeah, so what did you think of We Ain't Shit and Drugs Are Good?
Yeah, I think they're good. You know, I think they ain't shit. And I mean, I prefer Drugs Are Good to We Ain't Shit. I think We Ain't Shit's a good start, but I think Drugs Are Good is like a really, really good NoFX track.
Wow.
And it was lovely to hear it live as well for their last Leeds show.
I was surprised to hear it live, I must say. It's not one of my favorite. I feel the exact opposite. I really like We Ain't Shit. Also, I think We Ain't Shit is being said in the way that means we're not very good.
Sure. Oh, okay. Double negative.
Yeah, it's like it's sort of like bitches ain't shit. It's that kind of meaning, and it's really funny. I heard someone talking about. I can't remember what it was. It might have been on Krista Makes from Less Than Jake. He's got a podcast where he interviews people about songs that they've written and like a songwriting breakdown, and very, very in-depth and nerdy. It's called Krista Makes a Podcast. I enjoy it a lot. And he was talking to somebody who was using the phrase, oh yeah, this ain't shit, meaning that isn't anything to concern yourself with. But then he started using it in the opposite way, because he started going, the thing is that, you know, it's like, oh, there's a line in here that says teachers ain't shit. The thing is there are some teachers who are shit, and they should be celebrated. I'm like, and it just doesn't work backwards. It was just, it really made me laugh. But yeah, so We Ain't Shit is NoFX, because if you look at the lyrics, they're like, you know, talking about how, yeah, we're well aware we just play the same 4 chords over and over. We know we're washed up old men. We know, you know, we take up too much space. We're, you know, a professional disgrace, all of this stuff. So it's sort of, I don't know. I like it. I also like the music as well, more than Drugs Are Good. Sort of, it's a bit ploddy for me. I don't know.
And I feel like, you know, after Heavy Petting Zoo, I don't know, like, because I feel like this has elements of Heavy Petting Zoo in how, like, rough around the edges it is. Like, the recording feels a little bit more raw than, you know, Punk in Drublic, for instance. Yes. But I think the songwriting is here, which I can't find the usual songwriting brilliance of NoFX. I just don't see it on Heavy Petting Zoo, sadly.
Right. Yeah, well, the thing is, this was basically this was released like a month before Punk in Drublic. So, but again, it was limited, very limited. So it must have only really sold in California.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know this came out before. I thought it was slightly after.
No. This one came out a month before, so it's probably recorded at the same time.
Sure.
Is what I would suspect. This was part of the Punk in Drublic sessions.
Yeah, so interesting that it sounds quite different to the stuff on Punk in Drublic.
Which might be why it didn't find its way on there.
Yeah.
It might have just not sat with the rest of it. So, but yeah, I mean, I think I don't think I'd use either of these songs to introduce anyone to NoFX, but
no,
I'm glad I listened to them. I had Drugs Are Good is used. On one of the secret tracks, Howard Stern is talking about how shit they are.
Yes, because there is also there's a great recording of them playing Drugs Are Good live, and there's a couple great bits in it. There's a bit where like they're doing like I think the guitar intro, and El Jefe just does the bit from the Howard Stern show where he's like, "NoFX, no talent, more like." So he, like, says that like over the intro. But then there's also another brilliant bit where they're heading towards the second chorus, and El Jefe spots a security guard on the front, and he pretends to polish his head like it's a bowling ball. and it makes Mike laugh so much that he completely fucks up the second chorus.
Now, you see, that is peak NoFX for me.
That's on YouTube, so I would recommend people having a look at that. If they
have a look. Drugs Are Good live. You'll find it. That's very, very funny. Yeah, I don't know a lot about Howard Stern. He's not really a figure in UK culture. I'm aware of what he does and all the rest of it, but
sounds like an American Chris Moyles, to be honest.
Well, I'm going to give him slightly more credit than that, because knowing as little as I do about him, to say that about someone is a very, very scathing thing to say. But
now, bearing in mind, I have no real formal knowledge of Howard Stern, but just whenever he seems to come up in conversation, bearing in mind, as Eddie said, not really a part of like British culture.
Nope.
But every time he comes up, it's always like, it reminds me of, in The Simpsons, old man yells at cloud. It's just always something that he's furious about that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think he might be one of the ones that shock jock, that term was sort of invented about. But I mean, I don't quite get the appeal if what he does, he hears Drugs Are Good by NoFX, which is a weird song.
Sure.
But the best he can do is go, no FX, no talent.
Got him.
Yeah, zing! It's up there with fucking Gordon Ramsay, who thinks he's the most cutting man in the world, where he's like, oh, salad, more like crap salad. Fuck off, Gordon. I once saw Gordon Ramsay. I once saw a thing, right? Gordon Ramsay was sat there. He'd ordered the crab cakes, right? And he didn't like them. Surprise, surprise. And he went, crab cakes? More like shit cakes. More like shit crab cakes. I was like, it was right there, Gordon. What is wrong with you? So it's So it's that level of fucking appalling zingers off the cuff shit. So I don't know. He may be a fucking genius. I don't know. I think part of the appeal of Howard Stern, from my very vague understanding, is he used to get pretty good guests on.
Right.
People like to go on there, and the interviews were unusual, and they weren't like run of the mill things. So you got a more interesting thing out of it. I think what's his name, Billy. He does the voices of like Fry and
right, yeah.
Professor Farnsworth and Ren and Stimpy and all of those ones. The voice actor, anyway, he did a lot of voices on Howard Stern and stuff, like sort of prank call-y kind of things, which I'm not very fond of, but they would have been at least performed well if he was doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forgotten the guy's name, but yeah, he's like the one of the best US voice artists. Anyway, so that's HOFX, and it fits in. Yeah, it fits in between White Trash and Punk and Drublic, and yeah, it doesn't feel like those songs really belong on either album, does it?
No, yeah. So I think, as we've said, I think it makes sense to put them on their own release here.
Yeah.
And I'm not normally a fan of 2-track EPs. I'm kind of like, oh, why don't you write 3 more songs?
Yeah.
But in this case, I think it works.
Yeah, it's fine. And again, this wasn't a release for sort of anything more than particularly hardcore fans, I suppose, because it's just, they made less than 8,500 copies. So this was just one of those things that they like to do. So not really much to be to say on that. I mean, it's funny that a non-drug taking Mike writes a song called Drugs Are Good, making fun of people who take drugs.
And then
became the Mike of today. And now sings this unironically. It's interesting that you could, I suppose if you make a song that sarcastic, you can just take the sarcasm out and it is just straight up. You know how when Jim Davidson steals ironically racist jokes from modern comedians, takes away the irony and sarcasm, and all of a sudden it's just a straightforward racist opinion, and he loves those. Anyways, that's HOFX. Hello everyone, Eddie here. Red and I hope you're enjoying our show. If you have been and would like to help us make it a little more easily, then you can donate to us at our Ko-fi page, which is ko-fi.com/punkrockelite, or you can look in the show notes for our link tree. If you can't help us financially, we totally understand, but would love it if you spread the word to other people who would like this podcast. We thank you for your continued support. We massively appreciate it. Back to the show. A little more to talk about with the second EP, which was, now let's have a look here. Fuck the Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Great name for something you're going to release. Which is very, very clever. So this was released. Let's have a look here. It was recorded on. Oh, let's have a look here. I just want to compare these. Okay, so Heavy Petting Zoo was recorded in October 1995.
Okay.
And it was released on the 31st of January 1996.
Okay.
Now, Fuck the Kids was recorded on April the 13th, 96, and released August 1996.
Oh, okay.
So that's sort of interesting because it's only a few months after the release of Heavy Petting Zoo that they're back in the studio for one day.
I wonder if because obviously we're not the biggest fans of Heavy Petting Zoo. I wonder if they weren't the biggest fans of Heavy Petting Zoo.
It's possible. It might be. I know Mike has said that he feels that Heavy Petting Zoo is very much overthought, very, overproved. I think they spent a lot of time on it.
Yes.
And that's probably influenced how it's turned out.
Yeah, because I mean, this album or this EP is the complete antithesis to that, because of the nature in which it was recorded and written.
Yes, so we've got 13 songs. I'm going to call it 12 just because Fuck the Kids and Fuck the Kids 2 are the same song, just two different takes.
Song is a strong word.
They're the two different takes of that.
5 seconds of music.
Yes, in total. But we've got 13 tracks. The first two are 2 takes, and I think that I really like this EP.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say that straight up. I really, really like it. I can absolutely understand why some people would not. But
it certainly grows on me. I do think of the 2 EPs we've listened to, I prefer HOFX. I know it's only 2 songs, but I just think that they're bangers. And there's not, there's good songs on here, but my favorite songs, I think that there are better versions available.
Yes, absolutely. I favor the because we've got 3 on here. 3? Yes, we've got 3 on. No,
2.
2. We got 2 on here from So Long, in the form of I'm Telling Tim and Murder the Government.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those, I think the versions on So Long are better.
Yeah, I mean, I think in those instances, like, this really does feel like, the demos of those songs.
I mean, there's a couple of musical arrangements different in I'm Telling Tim. It doesn't have the slow down halftime bits towards the end. It doesn't have the Mel Yell doing the counter melody on it.
Yeah, and it's the same with Murder the Government. There's a couple backing vocals that aren't there on this version.
Yes, and I think there are some lyrical and maybe slight melodic differences.
Yeah.
As well, which I like. I think it's interesting that a band can take a song and go, we didn't do that one quite the justice it deserves. Let's tidy it up.
I don't think we've so like this EP, my understanding is like this was written and recorded very quickly, and basically the first successful take they did of each song ended up on this EP. So like,
yes,
I mean that's what I mean when I say this is the complete antithesis of Heavy Petting Zoo, which was an album where each song was labored over for days, weeks, etc. This was very much get in the studio. I've written these songs. I don't believe the other members had even heard the songs that Mike had written before going into the studio. He just
no. They were introduced to it as they were taught it,
right?
And then the first take they got through without severely fucking up was used.
Yeah. And I think you can hear that, like, not in a negative way, actually in quite a positive way. There's like an undeniable energy about this EP.
That's the thing. Again, this isn't something I'd introduce someone to NoFX unless I knew that they liked sort of unprocessed, sort of hardcore music. And if they did, I'd go, well, maybe this is sort of NoFX in their purest form. I think it's basically stopping the band and possibly mainly Mike from getting in their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they felt Heavy Petting Zoo was a little bit overthought, so they decided to underthink this one.
And I absolutely think that NoFX under a time constraint or NoFX not being allowed to dwell is the best NoFX.
And I wonder if there's like anything in, obviously this album is called Fuck the Kids, and I feel like, are they almost railing against a lot of the punk that was out at the time, which was overproduced and overthought, and they're trying to make a point of like, you can just get in a studio and do it. You don't need all this extra shit. You don't need weeks in a studio. You can just go and make music and release it.
Yeah, maybe someone said to them, "Oh well, are the kids going to buy that?" Maybe like go, "Oh well, after Heavy Petting Zoo, we thought maybe we'll just go in and just sort of just tear through the songs. First one across the finish line wins." And you go, but are the kids going to go for that? And go, fuck the kids. Maybe that was it.
Yeah, I think that might make sense.
And I think that seems like a sort of a NoFX-y kind of attitude, I suppose. It's I think it's really good. So we got Fuck the Kids and Fuck the Kids 2, which is essentially a single track of 2 takes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can tell a huge difference between the first and second, I don't know. But I mean, there is a little bit. But yeah, I'm Telling Tim, which is the first proper song on this EP. It's really, really good. I mean, it's just a great song anyway. There's some little differences that this one mentions Gilman Street and the So Long version doesn't. So let me see. So Fuck the Kids was released in August 96. Oh wow, and So Long was released on the 11th of November 97.
Sure.
So they so they released Fuck the Kids, and then it was a year after the release of this that they went in to record So Long.
Oh, okay. And it's interesting to hear one of my favorite tracks off of So Long here in its sort of like embryonic stage. Given the way these songs were written and recorded, I find that really interesting because I think I'm Telling Tim is a great, quintessential NoFX track, but it's so interesting to hear it here, just like the bare bones of it, taught to the other members in under 20 minutes and just recorded and put out there.
Yeah. I think it's. I really, really like the approach to it. I think it serves everything really, really well. Not all of these songs are great, but I think the immediacy of it all overrides a lot of the quality issues regarding the songwriting. I can see why only 2 of these songs made it onto So Long.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I don't think that we, I'm glad that they expanded on a couple of these songs, but I don't feel like we need to do that on all of these.
No.
One thing that I do think is quite interesting is like, this is NoFX without like the bells and whistles. Like, this is NoFX without guitar solos. This is NoFX without harmonies.
There doesn't appear to be any harmonies. There's no ska. There's no horns.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a solo here and there, maybe, but not, just an improvised solo.
Yeah.
There's some of these songs are sort of serious. Some of them are not. My Name is Bud is done seriously, but it's just. I think there's another name for this song, which is My Parents Smoke Too Much Pot. About this kid called Bud, whose sister's called Mary Jane. It's fine, but the thing is that because it's not done in like a comedy way, and the lyrics aren't particularly clear, you can just hear it as a straightforward hardcore song.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Reagan Sucks is good because Melvin starts singing that one, and then it goes into Mike singing a more melodic thing. It actually sounds a bit like 6 Years on Dope. It's got 6 Years on Dope energy long before it, which is cool. Please Stop Fucking My Mum. I mean,
that's one of my favorite tracks on here. It might even be my favorite track on here.
It is pretty good. It's funny because it's got the most Blink-182 title of a NoFX song. And I think a lot of these are very good. The only one I hadn't heard before because it's not on the 45-46 is Stupid Canadians, and I've got to say, having heard it, sure. But
does Eric Melvin sing on that one?
I think that's Eric Melvin versus PCP.
Oh, are you sure? Because I don't know.
I can't remember, to be honest. I listened to this about 3 times in the car this morning as I was driving back from taking my girlfriend to work. And it's, some of these stick in a little bit more. Poseur, I like that one as well.
I think it's Poseur. It's definitely one track on this album, but I'm pretty sure it is Poseur. It starts and it sounds like it sounds exactly like a Dead Kennedys track off of Fresh Fruit and Rotting Vegetables. I think it's Looking Forward to Death. It sort of has the little. It starts with a bass line that sounds quite similar.
Oh yeah, very possibly.
And I've I think a few early NoFX tracks sound a little bit like Dead Kennedys from that era, and I'm not complaining at all. I think that's one of my favorite punk albums of all time.
Yeah. Hello everyone, Eddie here. Red and I hope you're enjoying our show. If you have been and would like to help us make it a little more easily, then you can donate to us at our Ko-fi page, which is ko-fi.com/punkrockelite, or you can look in the show notes for our link tree. If you can't help us financially, we totally understand, but would love it if you spread the word to other people who would like this podcast. We thank you for your continued support. We massively appreciate it. Back to the show. No, I think there's a bit more Dead Kennedys in, because Mike talks a lot about Rich Kids on LSD and Bad Religion as being sort of the big influences, but there are lots.
Yes.
And I also think, Dead Kennedys probably influenced a lot of the bands that Mike also likes, it's that kind of thing. Because Dead Kennedys were super early. They were like 78, I think, was their first when
it's crazy, isn't it? They feel just like miles ahead of so many artists around the same time.
Yeah. They sort of And with the more sort of Frankenchrist-y, give me convenience, give me death, sort of basically invented hardcore.
Yeah, and I think NoFX. I mean, you can really see the lineage from Dead Kennedys to NoFX with that sort of like, the it's quite satirical. A lot of their songs, their songs are arguably funny, but also, go hard.
Yeah, I think Jello's sense of humor and his approach to things, which is to say something you don't agree with in a stupid voice. He and Johnny Rotten, very, very similar approaches to humor. That kind of thing. Wow, that's good, because our favorite Ronald Reagan is president. Mike has said that for so long, and I think we can sort of, because this has got some so long songs on it, we can count in that sort of period, the post Zoo, pre Too So Long. He said that he sort of gave himself 20 minutes to write each of the songs on So Long. And that prevented him from overthinking. Now, I'm sure that those songs got changed as they went around, but that initial thing of, this song's going to take me 20 minutes, sit down, pick up the guitar, chug out some chords or whatever. And whilst that's probably a great story, a great thing to say, the point of it was to greatly reduce the amount of time dwelling on a song and just going, does this song sound good? Yes? Okay, I'll keep it. No? All right, well, I'll change it, or I'll do something different.
Yeah, it's almost like an experiment. Like it's, I feel like this EP is them, they're throwing shit at a wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know what? It sticks.
Yeah. It sticks more often than it doesn't, I've got to say. And I love that, because I also love watching work in progress shows by comedians.
Yes. And that is what this is, isn't it?
It is. It's a work in progress show. I also love improv when it's done by good performers. All of these things that are just like, well, we're doing it, so it's just going to happen. We've just got to carry on doing it.
It's like going to watch NoFX perform at a free fringe venue.
Yeah, basically, yeah. They go, right, we've got a new album. We don't know whether it's any good, so we're just going to play it. Put some money in the bucket at the end if you think it was any good. And I think I find that hugely appealing. As a person who does creative things professionally and personally, I find that very appealing. I don't know if that's as appealing to people who are primarily consumers of creative projects rather than the creators themselves. I don't know. I'm trying to say that in a way that doesn't sound dismissive to people who don't do that, but there are tons of people who don't, and I'm not denigrating. I'm just saying there are people who are dead into music, never made any, aren't particularly interested in making any. I'm wondering if this sort of thing is as interesting to them as it is to people who do make music or whatever creative endeavors.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, definitely.
Because I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think with rock music, and I'm using that term to be as broad as it sounds, it seems that, do you think a higher number of fans, a higher percentage of rock music fans actually play music themselves than, say, pop fans, for example?
I mean, potentially, yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably that's probably true.
It feels true, doesn't it? But I've got no evidence with which to back that up.
Well, I suppose a big difference is, rock music is generally made with guitar, bass, drums, and vocals, whereas pop music is made with a vocalist and maybe a producer.
Yes.
And
computers and synthesizers and
yeah,
that kind of thing. I mean, pop music used to be made. If you're talking like if we're going back to like Motown stuff,
yeah,
but broadly speaking, people who've been into that kind of stuff got no interest. I didn't know, like when I was at school, all the fans of rock music. This is some real fucking anecdotal evidence here. So any scientists listening, I am aware of it. Don't worry, I'm not trying to prove anything with this. But just from the perspective of when I was at school, all the kids who liked any form of rock music, all of them at least owned a guitar,
sure,
or a
yeah,
bass, or something. Whether they played it for more than 2 weeks with any regularity, I don't know. But the idea of being able to make it or just recreate it yourself was sort of part of the appeal. Whereas the people who were into like the R&B of the era, apart from like half-heartedly singing along to it a little bit, none of them had any real sort of drive, it would appear, to sort of be involved in the creative side of it. They just liked consuming it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just wondered whether it was a more of a rock thing to be that kind of. I don't know. But that's why I think these sort of raw listen. You can hear them discussing stuff, going, "Oh, I fucked up. Oh, what was that?" The chat and the mucking around and the sort of checking levels of guitars and stuff whilst the recording's going on.
Yeah,
is super interesting to me because it's like somewhere between a live experience and a recorded experience to an extent, because I think generally they try and record all of the music at once as a band, separated in different booths and stuff. But a lot of records are made, right, we've got the drums down now, bass player, you sit and do your bass over the top, then we'll put the guitars, and it gets pieced together like a jigsaw. So I don't know. I might be.
I think also with this album, similarly to their first albums, I think that Smelly really shines through here, and I think really keeps all of this together. And I tend to find when NoFX are in their like rawest form, so like Liberal Animation and EPs like this, where they're just playing it nice and quick and getting it out there, I think that you really, really notice the strength and sturdiness of Eric Sandin behind the kit.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think he is that magic ingredient that no matter what else is going on, the drums are not faltering.
Yeah.
He is so rock steady. Whatever is going on, he will make it fantastic. He
absolutely
will really, really make it work. And yeah, so I would absolutely recommend both of these if you're already a fan. You can find most of it on the 45 or 46 songs comp, which is an interesting one. There's a lot of a lot of the ones from the 7 inches that they do and stuff like that. They had I don't think any of the 7-inch of the month club stuff came up on it, but outside of that, I think basically I think the Timmy the Turtle as well, which is one from 1999. That's just a 2-song one as well, which is also sung by Duncan from Snuff, which is really funny. They decided to do that, but anyway, sorry, getting off the topic. So, yeah, I think if I had been around at the time, I was around at the time, but if I'd been in a place where I was getting the NoFX releases as they were released,
yeah,
and I got Punk and Drublick. Oh, I got HOFX, then Punk and Drublick. I'd be like, whoa, what is this? And then the next thing I heard was Heavy Petting Zoo. Assuming I feel the same way about those 2 records as I do now.
Yeah.
I think if I were to see a new 7-inch by NoFX that was probably what, $5,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and think, well, let's see, I'd pick it up, and if I got that, I'd feel quite confident about the next release.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean, sort of whatever Heavy Petting Zoo was for me, I think Fuck the Kids would probably restore a bit of confidence in me. I don't know about you.
No, definitely. I completely agree. And I think it adds a little bit of context to Heavy Petting Zoo. I also think that listening to these two, I kind of appreciate how NoFX don't do the same thing twice. Because following the success of Punk in Drublic, I think it would have been really easy for them to go, "Oh, okay, we've made a successful album. Let's do more of this. Let's really lean into this sound. Let's take it to an extreme." And they don't do that. They back away and they do this. They do Fuck the Kids, which is like so different, like and Heavy Petting Zoo, so different, from the approach to Punk and Drublic. But then like this feels, I know this is rough around the edges like Heavy Petting Zoo, but it is still very different to Heavy Petting Zoo, like the immediacy of this EP. And that's what I really appreciate with NoFX. Like they're just not doing the same thing twice.
No, there are plenty of bands out there that find a sound and go with it.
Yeah, I mean, and there's still bands that are like dining out on a sound they found in the 80s, 90s, 70s.
Yeah, absolutely.
And NoFX almost like actively sabotage that.
Yeah, I suppose. I suppose Mike appears to be someone who gets bored very easily.
Oh, do you think?
Yeah, a little bit. But do you know what I mean? And so. And I think and he wants to develop as a songwriter, like in Dinosaurs Will Die, he talks about make records that have more than one good song.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like, well, I'll just use the best songs I have at the moment. And I suppose if you're wanting to write a song in 20 minutes, that's not going to be a 5 or 6 minute long song, is it?
Very good point.
That's got to be, if you want to be able to go through it 10 times, that's got to be less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, and I think there's something about, let's not forget, NoFX's arguably most famous song, Linoleum, is, it's a verse and a bridge without a chorus.
Yeah.
And it's just how they roll sometimes. Like you don't need to sweat and labor over something for weeks, days, months to make it, good art. Yeah.
Well, apparently Linoleum was a mistake as well. Mike was trying to go from E major to A minor, and went from open E up to A minor at the 5th fret, missed and hit G sharp minor at the 4th fret, and went, that interval sounds interesting, and started playing with that.
Oh wow!
So because a lot of NoFX riffs do sound like they're mistakes. They do sound like they were aiming for a different one. And I really like that because it very much thumbs its nose at what the concept of a sort of a cool riff is, I guess.
And I think by the time they have El Jefe in the band, who is obviously, musically knows what the fuck he's doing, I think they get a better understanding of that. Because I think NoFX have always sounded a little wrong, a little incorrect, like you've said. But then, like, there's this understanding of how to make that wrongness sound right.
It's that Les Dawson thing for those who are young or not from the UK. Les Dawson was a wonderful comedian from the north of England, and one of his shticks was playing he was a brilliant pianist, but he would play these songs and he'd like turn to the camera like Liberace and give a wink, and as he gave a wink he would hit a bum note. But he would hit the perfect bum note. It's like, it's not about playing the wrong note, it's about playing the right wrong note.
Yeah.
And NoFX have got a lot of right wrong notes
Yeah.
The
Well, they're
perfect
playing all
discord,
the right notes, but not necessarily in the right order.
which is Morecambe and Wise. Good God, this is a vintage comedy episode. We're going to finish this one. It's going to be like the end of Open All Hours. We go, it's been a funny all day. Doing the shop at the end. Good. Those of you who weren't alienated by our heavy petting zoo episode, just being alienated by the references in this one. Cool. No, yeah. So I think it's I think this would be a sort of a beacon of hope that NoFX weren't going down a road that I didn't particularly care for.
Yeah, I think, the basics are all here, and I think there's a lot of bands who rest on all of the fancy stuff that they can use in the studio, and rely on that.
Yeah.
And here it's just basics, and it's still good. And I think that is a sign that the foundations of NoFX are sturdier than most live acts out there.
Yeah, you could drop NoFX in a very basic bare bones analog tape recording studio.
Yeah.
And something cool would come out of it.
Absolutely. And that is a band like not forgetting their roots. This is like where they've come from. And now, 15 years into their career or so, they're still they still know how to do the basics. And I think a lot of artists forget the basics and start relying on, fancy studio shit.
Yeah, or that writing in the studio where, and I don't know how many of them just go, right, well, I've got that verse. We'll just copy and paste that one in like that.
And
which is fine. Which is fine if you're doing demos and stuff. If you're writing a song, if you're making a demo and you're sort of going, okay, right, I've got that bit. Okay, dum dum dum, that's going in there. And you take that to your bandmates and go, right, we need to learn this, and then you learn it as a 3, 4, 5 piece band or whatever. Just by doing that, you'll naturally make changes. You'll make things and then you go in and then record that. That's all cool. It's when people go into the studio and just sort of go, okay, right, I've played the bass riff once. Okay, right, put that in 8 times. It's sort of, you can tell, and it sounds boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, a lot of bands write stuff, and the intention is that will always be an album track. It will never be played live because in a lot of cases, they can't play it live. And even in the cases when NoFX do that, they still work out a way of playing it live. I mean, we've just seen them in Leeds, USA Holes, which is what they described as the hardest song they play live. I don't think they had really been playing it live. I don't think they played it live off the back of Wolf in Wolves Clothing.
No.
But they have learnt it now for their latest tour. So like even the ones that sound...
Using their mate from Goldfinger.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Using all the tricks they can.
But hey, it worked. It sounded great.
Absolutely. Even these unplayable songs, they work out a way of playing them when other lesser bands just wouldn't.
They have played The Decline consistently live.
Yeah.
And lots of bands would just go, they just go, we're not taking 20 minutes out of our set to do that. And, the audacity. And the other is, that's a lot though, isn't it? It's like, well, is it? But they managed to consistently put that in the middle of sets. Not even finishing with The Decline.
Yeah.
You'd think that would be the encore or whatever. Not that they do encores particularly, but you find a way of doing it live. They did for The Decline, or was it in different drum? Yeah, they basically said to El Jefe, "Can you play the trombone?" And he said, "I don't know." So they bought him a trombone, and he could play it. And so he uses that for the end of the Decline, the horn part on that, and the March to a Beat of an Indifferent Drum. They did the sort of the reggae version that he sings and plays the trombone on. It is a valve trombone, not a slide trombone, so a little bit different. But it is just it's just funny where they're just like, "Can you play the trombone?" He's like, "I don't know." Well, here. Oh yeah, apparently I can. It's pretty cool. But that's the thing. They find a way to do it, and I think that is really, really cool. There are some songs which they're probably not going to play live just because they're like, when is that ever going to replace the Bruise in the set list?
Sure.
But you want to put in some of your new ones. I mean, we got a new song at Leeds. We got the "I Love You More Than I Hate Me."
Yes,
which is not my favorite from those single and double album, but it's their song, it's their gig. They can play what they like.
I prefer. There's a similar song. I feel like it's a similar song on First Ditch Effort. I quite like. What is it? I Don't Like Me Anymore.
Oh yeah.
That's a really good song.
Yeah, and that's got a cool keyboard riff on it as well.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's a bit of a shorter episode today, but that's how it goes sometimes. But that was Fuck the Kids and HOFX.
Any standout tracks on Fuck the Kids for you?
I'm not going to include the ones that end up on So Long because they are pretty much head and shoulders better than all of these. I really like Reagan Sucks.
Sure.
And Stranger Than Fishing. I like that one too. Yeah, I think those are my two favourites on this.
I like Please Stop Fucking My Mum.
That is a good one, yeah.
I think Two on Glue has some really needlessly cool drums on it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, the fact that Eric Sandin finds a way to show off on this album is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, that guy can never be overstated how good he is or how important he's been to punk in general. Oh, should make a little note on the artwork. What's quite funny is that the artwork, when NoFX released the PMRC Can Suck On This a long time before this, Propagandy released a 7-inch called How to Clean a Couple of Things, related to the How to Clean Everything. And they took the artwork from the PMRC Can Suck On This and pasted some of their own shit over the top and went and put Propagandy over NoFX, like just glued it on and stuff. Ha 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 ha. Very funny. For Fuck the Kids, NoFX took the artwork from How to Clean a Couple of Things and put some of their stuff on top of that. So they've got there's 3 EP covers in one EP cover on that one. So that's kind of fun. When Propagandy and NoFX were a lot closer as bands.
Yes, because I believe they go through a turbulent time around War on Errorism.
Oh, for a long time. Well, I think, is it One Celled Creature is about... which is on Wolves, I think, is about Propagandy. But I don't know. I mean, I think Propagandy have much more of a sense of humour than a lot of people give them credit for.
Sure.
And so I think it might be a bit tongue-in-cheek. It might be a little bit. I don't know. I've not gone into it enough. We're going to be asking the Propagandy ambassador from the Unscripted Moments, a podcast about Propagandy, to join us on this for an episode, and we can really, really get to the bottom of what these two think of one another. So yeah, you just need to iron out a few calendar issues, and hopefully we can settle that once and for all. I don't think we'll bother with an outro today. We're pretty much set on what we got, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the style of Fuck the Kids, we've just rocked up, we've chucked it down on tape, and we're just going to throw it out there onto the internet.
Absolutely. What you don't know is that we leave just enough space for a sting when we go, we'll join you in the main body of the episode. We just stop and then start again. So there's no pausing or anything. We've not moved into a different room, which is the impression I get a lot of podcasts want you to think. Go, oh, we're just hanging out in the kitchen doing an intro. We're just going to walk into the main studio for the body of it all. It's like, come on, guys, you've barely swiveled your chair. So anyway, Lovely. If you have any feelings on HOFX or Fuck the Kids, punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram. Tell people about it. Let people know, because we'd love more people to hear about it if you think they'd be down.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Red.
Thank you, Eddie.
We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Punk Rock Elite. It was a Pick Scraped and Fruitcake co-production by Eddie French and Red Redmond. If you're not following us on Instagram or subscribed to the podcast, please do. The main theme and production was done by Eddie French. Please contact us at punkrockelitepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you.